Wanted to talk a little bit about Flesh and Blood today. So, yesterday I played Flesh and Blood for the first time ever, and I ended up having a lot of fun. My favorite thing is that I don't get mana screwed, because let me tell you, it does not feel good when you get mana screwed. Um, Man, it's that's my biggest gripe about MTG is that the mana resource. A little bit of history. So my first ever trading card game that I played was Pokemon, like a lot of '90s kids, right? we all played Pokemon for our very first TCG. Now I think I was 5 or 6 at the time, maybe a little bit older. And yeah, I mean, I grasped the rules enough to be able to play in a local tournament at one of the local malls there. And I got knocked out first round. So, as you can imagine, as a little kid, I was pretty beside myself, and I don't think I ever went to another tournament again. And I'm not even really sure. I can't recall really playing Pokemon after that, at least the TCG. The next card game I would pick up wouldn't be until I was like 12 or 13, which would be Yu-Gi-Oh! As I'm sure most 90 kids also played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! And yeah, I really stuck with that for a few years. I still, to this day, I still love the game. And then it wasn't until I hit high school, my freshman year of high school, is when I got introduced to Magic the Gathering. And pretty much the only thing I knew about it was that it had some really expensive cards. like I'm sure a lot of people, as their first impression of Magic is like, oh, did you know this card is worth like $10,000, you know? And they're like, oh, I really gotta play this game so I can get that card. But I didn't actually end up playing a whole lot of Magic the Gathering because I was still really stuck on Yu-Gi-Oh! And then actually eventually I just stopped playing card games altogether. Didn't really start playing again until I was much older, and I ended up picking up Magic the Gathering and tried my hand at a few local tournaments and stuff like that. But the more I played, the more upset I would get at the fact that how easily you can get mana screwed, especially when it comes to shuffling. You have to know how to shuffle and all these different shuffling techniques so that you don't get mana screwed. And eventually that led me to try out other TCGs. The very first one I tried out after I got upset by being mana screwed was Force of Will. And I really liked how they do their system because you have your mana is its own separate deck that you can choose to draw from at any time. So, you know, when it comes to your draw step, you can choose to draw from your regular deck, or you can choose to draw from your mana deck, which, you know, will obviously get you mana and to spend resources and stuff like that. So ever since then, I've really loved trying out other TCGs, and most recently getting back into TCGs again. Again, playing Commander. You know, in MTG you don't get as mana screwed as much in Commander, but you know, you can still have a bad time. So you know, I've been hearing a lot more about Flesh and Blood and how fun it is and stuff like that. So I decided to give it a shot. And I was not disappointed, let me tell you. I really love the fact that, the resources are any card in your hand can be used as a resource. So you don't get starved, essentially. I mean, you still can, but it's not anywhere near to the degree of, you know, in Magic the Gathering. And I like how at the beginning of the game, you start essentially as your strongest that you're ever going to be, because you start with all your weapons, you start with all your armor. I like the fact that you don't have to draw that kind of stuff. It just puts bloat in the deck, and it really just makes it to where you can get screwed a lot of the times, because, you know, what if your weapon cards are all the way at the bottom of your deck? Well, then you're stuck not attacking. So luckily, you know, they don't, that doesn't happen, because you start with everything essentially. And you know, during your turn you draw, you essentially use all your cards in your hand, and then during your end step you draw cards up to your intellect, and then you go, the next person goes, and then you get to use those cards you just drew as the cards to defend with. So you're never really stuck in this position or where you're like, oh, it's my turn, but I don't really want to use any cards because then I don't get to defend and things like that. So it's really interesting having the draw step at the end rather than at the beginning, but it allows for you to use all your cards in your hand and stuff like that. So now I didn't play in person because really I don't have any friends in my town that play TCGs, and really all the local game stores in my immediate vicinity within like 30 minutes to an hour either A, don't carry Flesh and Blood, or B, there's just not enough room to play. Like there's a few stores that they just have enough room for their cards and their product and things like that, but there isn't really enough room to play, or there's just not a whole lot in general. To be honest, I think there's only like 3 local game stores in my immediate area. So I had to play online. And I know the whole thing of Flesh and Blood is like, that's the reason why it's called Flesh and Blood, is because they want you to play in person. But, you know, especially, you know, me being an adult and having kid and responsibilities, I don't always get to go out and go to an LGS and things like that. So being able to play online was a really huge thing for me. And luckily there are plenty of fan sites that you can use to play online. Actually, the one that I used was Talishar. I used that website to play with one of my friends who also plays Magic the Gathering and was curious about Flesh and Blood. And we played last night, and you know, we read up on the rules and stuff like that, but it was really nice having the website do a lot of the rules for us so that we can better understand. I know there are some sites where it's like, yeah, you know, you can just dump all the cards onto the site, as in like, you know, you can copy and paste cards onto the site, but it's up to you to follow the rules. So it's a very broad platform, which is nice in some cases. Like in Force of Will, you can't really play online. There's no really fans applications or websites that allow you to do so, but there is a generic card website that you can at least upload a database of cards to, and it could essentially do some things like draw and shuffle and things like that, but it's really up to you to make sure you follow the rules correctly. So having a website like Talishar was really nice in learning the rules. And I can definitely see how this game can get very complicated very fast. One of the things I had the hardest trouble with was being able to attack more than once per turn. Now, my buddy of mine, he played Fae, the draconic, not monk, but that type of deal. Anyways, and he got to he was getting up to like 4 or 5 link combat links, right? Because a lot of his cards where he got to play for free. There was an orc one that I played. I played Lexi, and then I played Arakali, the new assassin hero. Now, the assassin hero was definitely my favorite by far. Oh, and I also played the guardian one that allows you to put souls into him. That one I like that one. That one definitely has potential, but that one was really hard for me to be able to utilize the soul mechanic properly. But I figure, you know, with more time and probably watching people play that deck, I'd be able to better utilize the resources that they give you. But yeah, I mean, that was really the hardest thing for me, was being able to attack more than once per turn. Like, I understand the whole go again mechanic, but having the resources and the attack cards in your hand without having cards that let you draw, that was really challenging for me. But I like the challenge. So, you know, I'm gonna continue playing Flesh and Blood. I really liked it. I think it's still a little too early to tell whether or not I prefer Flesh and Blood over MTG or vice versa. One thing that I do like about Flesh and Blood, at least right now, is that there is no standard, right? There are no sets that rotate out. Everything just kind of stays in rotation, essentially. Now that works really well when I think they have a total of 6 sets out right now, including Dynasty. And that works really well when you have a smaller amount of total sets to pull from. But at some point, I really hope that they do incorporate a rotation, mainly because you're going to start getting into the issue that Yu-Gi-Oh gets into, where you literally have hundreds of thousands of cards and interactions that you can do with, because Yu-Gi-Oh has the same concept where nothing ever rotates out. Of course, when you go, you eventually have like the best like 1,000 cards that are only played in tournaments and things like that. But for new players, it's really hard for people to get into Yu-Gi-Oh and deck building when as soon as they realize, oh, damn, I have to sort through 100,000 cards to figure out what I want, and it can get really intimidating. So a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players, are asking for some sort of rotation or something like that, so that it just becomes a more healthier environment. So I do hope eventually Flesh and Blood goes that way as they continue to get more sets. But I'm really excited to see where this company takes Flesh and Blood. And I know they had a Worlds tournament, so it's a worldwide game already. And yeah, just excited to see where it goes. I'll see you guys later.